All right, time for another video. This time I've got a special helper, Miss Jessica Van Relayer. So she's going to be going through all the kind of extra questions that you had after you watched those videos. We're going to get them answered for you. So hopefully you can come into orientation just really knowing everything that you want to know. So Jess, take it away. Let's go through. You can kind of ask me as we go, or if you think of any questions yourself as we go through this. The goal here is just to get as many questions answered as we can. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So I'm going to start with the energy efficiency versus solar quiz. So the first question is, are there certain homes that are currently in the position of a Hummer that cannot become a Prius through energy efficient upgrades? If so, what reasons can a home not become more energy efficient?
So there's homes that can use a lot of electricity, but they're very efficient. So like if a house it just has a lot of square feet, if it's like a mansion or like, a celebrity house, then even if it's very efficient, it's going to use a lot of electricity. So taking it to like the car analogy again, it's like if you're driving a Prius across country, it's still going to need a lot of gas. But as long as everything is upgraded in the house, then, it's going to be a Prius. So the only reason a house wouldn't be energy efficient is if it doesn't have all of the things in the house, like the AC, like the insulation, like the energy efficient windows. If it doesn't have like all those different things upgraded, then it's not going to be efficient. But that doesn't mean just because a house is energy efficient, it has a small bill. It could have a really big bill if it's just a really big house or it has a lot of air conditioning systems. So yeah, there are other factors there, but generally, if a house is a Hummer, it can always become a Prius.
Okay, sweet. And then, has it been possible for certain homes to receive incentives from the energy and water department with only implementing energy efficient upgrades and not going solar? If so, how effective are those incentives when helping pay for the cost of upgrades?
Yeah, so they're completely separate. So you can go solar and not do any energy efficient upgrades, or you can do energy efficient upgrades and not go solar. It's just that the best thing is when you do both. Um, in terms of how effective it is, it depends on the upgrade. So to give you an idea, like the thing that will make the biggest impact is generally getting a new AC because your AC is used the most. The second is getting a variable speed pool pump if you currently have a single speed pool pump. The rebates that are the best, if you want to look at the rebates, you can just go to DWP's website and they have all the rebates listed out. And you can kind of see the different amounts. So when we get into explaining each upgrade individually, which will probably be after the internship actually starts, we'll tell you what it is for each one. Don't really have the time to do that right now, but the two best rebates that are out there in terms of DWP's paying for all or most of the costs is the pool pump and insulation. And the two rebates that save the most energy, or the two upgrades that save the most energy, are the pool pump and AC. So I would rank the pool pump as the best bang for your buck upgrade that's out there.
Cool. Okay. Do some homeowners only choose one type of upgrade, either solar or energy efficient upgrades, or do we always help them with both? Also, I was confused on the first question. I answered it false because my logic was solar doesn't change the electric consumption, but rather the price of it. How? I'm not totally sure if that is correct.
Okay, can you walk me back to the first question? Just remind me so we can make sure everyone knows what the answer is to that.
Yep. Do some homeowners only choose one type of upgrade, so solar or energy efficient upgrades? Or
No, I think this person was asking like the first question on the quiz. Oh. So if you want to scroll over, we'll just start by clearing that up.
Going this
so
one, right?
Yeah, so the correct answer was false on that. So it's false because solar just changes, remember, the price per gallon. It has no impact on how many gallons you're going to buy. So yes, the correct answer was false. And then what was the question that was just asked again? Pull that back up.
Do some homeowners only choose one type of upgrade, solar or energy efficient upgrades, or do we
It's,
always help them with both?
I got it. Yeah, it's very rare that we'll just do one thing. So solar, like just think about it in terms of this, like if you could get a $2 gas card and you could get a better miles per gallon, like would you not want the $2 gas card? Like everyone's going to pretty much take that. So we generally only do upgrades that don't include solar with customers that don't that maybe already have panels but want to get something else, or we have a lot of repeat customers. So like for example, our customer Norm, he started off with solar and the pool pump, and then this year he decided to get his whole house fan installed. And then we're in his attic and we're like, Norm, you told us you had a lot of insulation, but when we're up there, there's like no insulation. So then he got his insulation done. And then he just heard about the rebates for insulation and decided he wanted to get his walls insulated as well as the attic. So he like just went crazy with doing extra stuff later, but he already had solar. But it's very rare that we'll do an upgrade without solar. Our average customer does solar plus 2 upgrades. So that's on average. Some customers do solar plus 5. Some it's like solar and 1 thing, but almost never is it just solar, and almost never is it not solar.
Okay. How often should HVAC systems be replaced?
It's a good question. So the newer HVACs are much more energy efficient. So they cost a lot less to run and they last about 15 years on average. The older systems actually last longer, but they're so expensive. So for some homeowners will have like systems that were installed 25 years ago, even up to 30 years ago, and they're still working. But we pretty much always upgrade those because those systems cost so much extra money to run because they're so inefficient that the new AC basically pays for itself within a few years just off of how much they save on electricity. Or if we're providing them solar panels, the reason why it still makes sense to do energy efficiency is they don't need as many solar panels when we upgrade their AC. So if we're making the energy efficient upgrade of a new AC with solar, they don't need as many panels. And if they don't need as many panels, then their payment will be even lower. So they'll save even more money. So that's why even when you go solar and you're getting a really good price on your gas or a price on your electricity, you still want to make those upgrades because if you need less panels, your payments are going to be less.
Okay. What is the most effective way for a home to save money? Go solar or energy upgrades, or does it depend on the specific home?
Solar is going to be the biggest savings by far. The other stuff will all help, and it really varies depending on which upgrade it is. But solar is always going to save the most money, assuming the person qualifies. Like 95% of people qualify for solar. Sometimes like the house is completely covered in trees, or they have a certain type of roof that we can't install on, then maybe, that's not an option. But I would say as long as their house qualifies for solar, it'll be solar.
Okay. And then next, what energy efficient upgrades save the most energy or reduce costs the most?
Yeah, so that would be a new AC. And then, like I said, second would be pool pump. And then the third would be a whole house fan. We'll explain whole house fans more in another video, but basically they make it so that you don't have to use the AC as much. And so that's where the savings come in. But AC, for a lot of houses, AC for the electricity they'll use over the course of the entire year. The air conditioning will make up like 40, 50, sometimes even 60% of it. So depending on how much they run it. So AC in the Valley is the biggest user of electricity.
Cool. Explain SB 350 further. We're going to do that in another video, right?
We already did. So I think they got their question answered.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. What energy efficient upgrades save the most energy or reduce costs the most?
We already answered that. Yeah. Cool. Next one.
Then for the how solar works video, first question, why doesn't everyone have solar?
The biggest reason is because they either don't know how it works or they think they know how it works, but they're wrong. That's the biggest reason. And we'll get into like more details because it is kind of crazy that everyone doesn't have solar already. And so we'll get into more of the like why that is, but it all kind of fits into one of those two categories. Something happened that either led them to misunderstand it or they just, no one's ever really explained it to them.
Cool. And then after 25 to 30 years, after the customer has saved almost 100 grand and the solar panels are no longer working effectively, what are the next steps in assisting our customer?
The panels actually don't stop working. It's just the warranty ends. So the best analogy I can give you for solar panels is it's like a magnet in the sense that, your magnet, you don't just say, oh, my magnet breaks. Your magnet's strength just gets less strong over time. So the connection's not as strong. And so that's the same thing that happens with the panels is they degrade a little bit each year. So every year they're going to produce slightly less power, but they pretty much kind of last forever, just like a magnet, is magnetic forever. It's just not as strong as when the chemical reaction first starts. So it's just after 25 years or 30 years, if there's an issue, the customer would just have to pay, to get it repaired or to get the panels replaced. But sometimes at some point they might want a whole new system. So let's say 35 years from now, obviously the panels will be a lot more efficient, and they decide they want, more panels. Then that's just part of the cost of their new system, or the next time they get their roof done, just taking the old panels off. And disposing of them or recycling them would be just part of the cost. So it's pretty standard. It's just like what happens when you need a new roof to the old roof, same thing. Whoever's doing the roof, they're not just putting on a new roof, they're going to take off the old one. So kind of the same concept there.
I think another question that might come up from that is like, so they could get new ones around 30 years, but what would you say is like the average amount of like lifespan before they'll get a new new solar panels?
There's so many variables. It really depends on the customer, but keep in mind, once your panels are paid off, it's free power. So you're never going to want to stop getting free power, even if your panels, let's say that so when they degrade about 0.5% per year. So that means that 25 years from now, they'll still be producing between 80 and 90% of what they're producing today. So they're still going to be producing a lot. And let's say that they start degrading a lot faster after that point, even if they're only at 50%, all that power is free. So there really doesn't make any sense to stop, getting free power. But at that time, you might have electric cars, you might need a lot more. And if there's not any other space on your roof, you might decide that you want to, get rid of those panels to get more efficient panels. So that way you don't, that way they're covering, your entire bill, because now that you're using more electricity, you're still buying some from DWP. So it's really going to depend on the customer, case by case, how much space is on their roof for more panels. But as long as there's space on their roof, they're probably going to want to just get more opposed to taking the old ones off.
Cool. All right. Are there ever cases where having solar is more expensive than not having solar?
So not really, but kind of. So I'll explain how it could be. So first off, when someone asked earlier, like why isn't everyone have solar? So solar is like so good that what happened is when it first started coming out and making so much sense financially, a lot of greedy people saw how good it was. And instead of just like making a good amount of money and like doing the right thing for customers, they decided they wanted to be really greedy and make insane amounts of money. And they would just charge customers like ridiculous prices. And because it was a new technology and customers didn't really understand it, some of them ended up getting charged more than what they were paying before without realizing it. So that's just been some really bad contractors and companies that have come around that have just given people really, really bad deals. That's not really that common anymore because, it's just been around a little bit longer. It's not like as easy for people like that to take advantage of customers. So it's really, even people that charge insane prices, like really, really high prices that I can't believe they're charging these days, they're actually still saving their customers money. The only other way that you would be paying more is if your panels weren't working. So the good news is they're covered under warranty. So, as long as, you have a warranty, then you don't have to worry about it because they'll just get replaced. But every single kilowatt hour that you get from your panels is a kilowatt hour you don't have to get from DWP. So it's always going to be less. With us, there's no way for a customer to be paying more. It will only be less. And the more that the panels produce, the more that the customer saves.
Sweet. Okay, next question. Can the credits from selling energy back to the electric company be converted into cash, or is it only usable towards electricity?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things we do when we're meeting with customers and doing energy assessments is we need to get their bill to size their system properly. So what that means is we want to give them whatever they used over the whole last year, not in their highest month, not in their lowest month, but we just add up how much electricity they use for the whole year. We want to give them enough solar panels to cover all of that. We don't want to give them a lot extra unless they're planning on using extra, because you cannot get cash for those extra credits. So the answer to that question is no. The credits will keep rolling over, but we want to give the customer the right amount of electricity for what they're going to use, because if you have a bunch of extra credits, it just means that you can use more power or more AC without having to pay. But it doesn't mean that you can cash out or like pay the water portion of your bill or really do anything besides just pay for electricity with them. So that's a big part of our meetings with customers, is making sure we're giving them the right amount of panels.
Okay. And then what happens when you run out of energy credits due to overuse of electricity?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's like the flip side. So the good thing is that DWP is always there as your backup. So you don't need to worry about running out of credits and like losing power. You'll always still have power. What happens if your panels aren't producing as much as you need is DWP kicks in, and then you just pay them for whatever's left over. But keep in mind, we talked about this briefly in a different video, but DWP charges by tiers, like the opposite of Costco. So the more that you buy, the higher the price is. And so they have tier 1, which is their lowest price, tier 2, which is their like high price, and then tier 3, which is their really high price. And so what happens when you have solar, let's say that you decide you're going to start using a lot more electricity and your panels can't keep up with everything that you're using. You only have to buy the excess from DWP. But if you didn't have solar, all that extra usage would be bought at tier 3, which is about 36 cents. And now because you do have solar, you're getting charged at tier 1, which is about 20 cents. So you save about 45% even off of that extra electricity, just because you had solar and you're not in tier 3, you're in tier 1. So either way, it'll work out, but we want to try to have a conversation with the customer. And if they're planning on using more, give them more panels up front. So that way they don't have to buy any electricity from DWP. But even if they do, they can never pay double. They're just buying the excess, and they're going to get a better deal from DWP on it because now they're in tier 1, not in tier 3.
And then lastly, on this one, approximately how much extra power is produced during the daytime in wattage?
Totally depends on the system, the customer, if they're home, if they're not home, it really, really varies. I can't give an answer on that because that's going to change completely. But I would say that our average system is going to produce like around 800 to 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. So that's about 30 kilowatt hours a day. And then depending on the month, that 30 might be all used up, or you might be getting an extra like 15 kilowatt hours a day, depending on what month it is. So it really, really varies.
Sweet. Okay, and then this one's the one. Okay, now we're going to do SB 350. So the first question, are there any other upgrades we do besides solar that qualify for a tax credit rather than a rebate?
Nope. So solar has a tax credit, and then most of the other upgrades have a rebate. Some of them we just do because it just makes sense for the customer. But a lot of the other upgrades do have rebates, and that's kind of what we figure out with the customers, which package makes the most sense for them.
And then are there ways someone who doesn't qualify for tax credits becomes qualified? If they don't qualify, they may not want to install solar panels, but if they can qualify by working for just a month, they might consider it.
Well, yeah. So if you just work for a month, unless you're making a ton of money that month, you're probably not going to pay very much taxes. But most of the people in the Valley, even if they're not working, they're still paying some type of federal taxes, whether it's through retirement or through investments or rental properties. So it's pretty rare that we meet with people that don't qualify for the tax credit. But just so you guys know, even without getting the tax credit, it's still less than DWP. So even if someone's not going to get the tax credit, they will still save money by going solar. Tax credit just makes the savings a ton of money. And then the other thing to know is that just someone has to own the house. So for example, let's say one person's working and the other person's not, and we can just, have the person who's working on the paperwork and they can claim the tax credit. But yeah, I mean, there are kind of ways where people can get creative, or, if they want to put like their son on it, who owns the house, they could always add their son to like the title of the house if he's not on it, if he's working, and he can get the tax credit that way. So yeah, there's little paperwork loopholes, but it's not something we run into that often because the vast majority of people that we meet with are paying income taxes.
Okay. What about other tax credits or government rebates are available for customers to receive while making their homes more energy efficient?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of other tax credits, I believe there's one for if you buy an electric car. So there's also tax credits for like having kids, and there's all different types of tax credits, just for different situations out there. So tax credit's a pretty common thing. In terms of rebates, I'll tell you the rebates that we use the most is the roofing rebate, the pool pump rebate, the insulation rebate. Those would be the three most common ones that we're doing through DWP.
Cool. And then what are some other reasons besides not working that people would not qualify for a tax credit?
The only reason you wouldn't qualify for the tax credit is if you don't have tax liability. Tax liability just means that taxes are coming out of your paychecks. So if if you're have taxes coming out, you're eligible to get all of that tax liability back. If you don't have any tax liability, then you aren't eligible to the tax credit, and it will roll over to the next year. So if you start working next year, you could always get it next year, but it's really simple. There's no like income requirements. It's just a matter of, if you're someone that has taxes coming out of your paychecks or you're paying taxes, then you have tax liability. And if you don't have tax liability, then, you wouldn't qualify.
If a customer is paying off the solar system monthly, will they get their 26% solar tax credit after they complete all their payments?
Yeah, I think I covered this in the next video, but just to clarify, you get the tax credit when you do your taxes the next year. You don't have to wait until all the payments are taken off. So that's why solar financing is the most popular option, because you get the tax credit right away. So generally $7,000 to $10,000, and you're just making a payment that was lower than what you were already paying before. And then some people will take that money and they'll go towards paying off their solar panels and keeping their payments really low. And then other people are like, no, I'll just keep this money. My payment's lower than DWP anyways. And I just got $10,000. Pretty sweet.
All right. And then the last one, is it possible for a customer to qualify for both a rebate and a tax credit?
Yeah, absolutely. They're totally separate. They don't have anything to do with each other. So yeah, if you do a upgrade that has a rebate, then you qualify for the rebate. There's really nothing that, like, if you do the rebate, as long as it's one of the programs that has a rebate, you'll qualify. And then the tax credit, as long as you're working and have tax liability, you'll qualify. So there's not really too many loopholes there.
Okay. Cool. And then the last one, when leasing, do payments forever get paid to the bank that takes on the cost of the panels? In other words, those payments don't count towards paying off your entire system like financing does.
Correct. So you'll never own the panels when you lease them. The payments are just going to the bank, just like when you buy your electricity from DWP, it's just going to DWP. You don't get anything for it. It doesn't go forever though. They're usually 20-year contracts. Sometimes they're 25 years. So at the end of 20 or 25 years, the bank will like take the panels back, or they have a few different options, or they'll sell them to you. But yeah, no, you never own the panels. The payments that you're making don't go towards paying off the panels at all.
Cool. And then last question, what happens if you decide you no longer want solar?
Yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want with your solar panels. It's just you're getting, you know, when you have free electricity. So, you know, it wouldn't really make any sense to not want the free electricity because you already paid for it. So if you purchase your panels, then, you know, you already paid for it. It's just like what happens. I guess like if you got a new roof and you didn't want your roof anymore, it's like, I don't know why you wouldn't want a roof because like you need shelter, just like you need electricity. But yeah, you could always get a new roof if you wanted, or you could always take the roof off, but it wouldn't really make sense financially. So yeah, it's like a fixture. It's a part of the house. Like it's like once you do it, like it would not make sense to take it off because you already paid for it.
All right, that is all the questions.
Cool. All right, so that wraps it up. Let's finish there, and then we'll have a few more videos coming out this week. I can't wait to see all of your orientation. Jess is sending out the address for our new office, which is exciting. So I will see you all soon.